Welcome to this explainer. Okay, let's just dive right into this, because what we're looking at today is, honestly, it's mind-bending. When you and I think of the internet, we usually picture, fiber optic cables, massive server farms, instant global communication. But what if I told you the very first version of a global information highway existed over 2 millennia ago? Today we're going to explore how a 2,000-year-old invisible web, stretching all the way from the dusty plains of China to the marble streets of Rome, acted as the world's very first platform for sharing massive ideas, world-altering tech, and yeah, even deadly viruses.
Imagine this for a second. We all have this popular image of the Silk Road, right? Just a dusty, simple dirt path used exclusively by merchants transporting bolts of fabric. But what if it wasn't just a road for silk at all? I want you to imagine a sprawling superhighway responsible for transmitting secret philosophies, transporting explosive materials like gunpowder, and eventually acting as the main conduit for a terrifying killer that wiped out a staggering portion of the world's population. It kind of completely changes how we view ancient history, doesn't it?
Section 1. The Ancient Internet, a global highway.
So, the reality here is that the Silk Road was this massive, constantly shifting network. It included both land and sea routes connecting the East and the West for literally over 2,000 years. Now, in its early days, trade along these routes was incredibly fragmented. It was a bit of a mess. But then the rise of powerful stabilizing forces, like the Kushan Empire in Central Asia, helped keep these routes open and, crucially, safe for travelers. And this safety wasn't just good for merchants trying to make a buck, it was the ultimate catalyst for an exchange of ideas. Because the routes were secure, belief systems like Buddhism were able to travel all the way from India right into China, Korea, and Japan. And that fundamentally changed the culture of those nations forever. This right here, this was our first true information network.
Section 2. The Mongol Golden Age, peak efficiency.
One world, one ruler. That was the motto of the Mongol Empire. And honestly, the real golden age of the Silk Road didn't even happen until the Mongols showed up. Under their absolute control, this ancient network reached its absolute peak of efficiency and safety. Because the Mongols controlled pretty much the entire route, the level of security was totally unprecedented. I mean, think about this. A merchant could literally buy silk in Korea and walk entirely across the continent to Europe without ever getting robbed. No way that happens without the Mongols effectively acting as the world's most intense IT department, making absolutely sure the network had zero downtime and in maximum security.
Let's look at the specific infrastructure upgrades the Mongols actually implemented to pull this off. Step 1. They secured the entire route. That laid the whole foundation of safety. But they didn't stop there. Step 2. They built a massive network of physical relay posts. And then Step 3. They deployed this incredible system of horse messengers. By putting all these pieces together, they made cross-continental communication faster than it had ever been in human history. They basically optimized the hardware of the Silk Road to let information travel at speeds people back then couldn't even fathom.
Section 3. Ancient Cultural Cocktails, Sharing Innovations.
Okay, so the absolutely crucial point here is that it wasn't just silk moving along these trails. Because of this massive connectivity, the world entered a time of incredible cultural cocktails, these wild mixtures of ideas and resources that just could never have happened otherwise. On one side, we've got this pristine white pottery originating from China, and on the other side, vibrant cobalt blue dye coming all the way from Iran. You know that famous blue and white porcelain that's so iconic today? That was actually a Silk Road collaboration. It was the physical, tangible result of this ancient internet taking local files from two completely different parts of the globe and mashing them together.
But we have to acknowledge, the sharing wasn't always voluntary. The Mongols heavily utilized the forced movement of specialists across Asia. They would actively forcibly relocate highly skilled individuals, we're talking gunpowder technicians and expert engineers, from one end of their massive empire to the other. And this forced migration of human capital, that served as the exact mechanism that finally brought gunpowder into Europe. Just think about that. That single transfer of technology over the Silk Road network completely changed the face of warfare forever.
Section 4. The Deadly High-Speed Highway, a Fatal Bug.
In the tech world, sometimes a system's greatest feature can easily become a catastrophic bug. Every great system has its oops moments, right? Well, for the Silk Road, the fatal mistake was simply being too efficient. Because everything was so perfectly connected, the Silk Road became a high-speed highway for the Black Death. The plague followed this terrifyingly efficient timeline. In the early period, rumors of a frightful sickness began spreading along the trade routes of China, India, Persia, and Syria, long before the disease actually hit Europe. Then, during the transit phase, the plague literally followed the merchants step for step, right along those secure, highly optimized Mongol routes. And finally, the arrival time. The disease reached the end of the line when the infamous death ships finally landed in Sicily.
I just want to let the devastating reality of this number sink in for a second. 1/3. Because of the sheer speed and connectivity of this ancient internet, this high-speed disease vector wiped out at least 1/3 of the population. It transformed an absolute marvel of human connection into one of the greatest, most tragic disasters in all of human history. The crazy thing is, the network worked exactly as it was designed to. It just didn't have a firewall to filter out a deadly virus.
Section 5. The End of the Road. Platform Obsolescence.
The Silk Road didn't just fade away because people suddenly stopped wanting silk or spices or connection. It faded because of a massive shift in technology. Basically, you couldn't easily reload a musket while sitting on a horse. By the 15th and 16th centuries, the invention and rapid spread of guns were making the traditional nomadic warriors of the Silk Road completely obsolete. The folks who had been the protectors and the administrators of the land routes simply couldn't keep up with the new hardware of the era.
We can clearly contrast the hollowing out of the ancient land route with what was quickly becoming the emerging global norm. On land, you had nomadic warriors on horses dealing with increasingly dangerous land trails, still relying on bows and arrows. But on the flip side, you had Portuguese and British explorers. And they realized something huge. They could completely bypass the danger of the ancient land routes by simply sailing around Africa. Once this sea trade became the new, highly efficient standard, the ancient land routes were virtually abandoned. The world basically upgraded to a new operating system, and they left the old land network behind in the dust.
So what does this all mean for us today? Well, the legacy of the Silk Road is absolutely profound, and it is very much still with us. It left us with the rich Byzantine culture of the East, it established the very foundation of how we conduct modern border trade, but most importantly, it serves as rock-solid historical proof that when humans are connected, wealth and knowledge undoubtedly grow. But it also stands as a stark warning. We always have to be ready for the bugs and the hidden risks that inherently come with massive global connection.
Which brings us to our final thought for this explainer. I mean, did you know before today that the Silk Road was actually responsible for creating that iconic blue and white pottery by mixing Chinese and Iranian materials? It's just incredible how connection breeds innovation. So I'm going to leave you with this question to ponder. Out of everything we've looked at today, from the Mongol messenger systems to the tragic, high-speed spread of the plague, what specific fact completely blew your mind today? Keep that curiosity alive and keep exploring the incredible interconnected systems of our past.